She marched straight into my field, waving her phone like a weapon, and screamed, "This tractor is blocking community access. I've called the tow truck." I almost laughed, because there was no community access. It was my farm, my land, and I was in the middle of planting. But the smirk on her face told me she wasn't bluffing. A rusty tow truck rolled up behind her, the driver looking confused, scratching his head. "Ma'am, this is clearly farmland," he muttered, but Karen shoved papers in his face. "HOA rules. He can't keep machinery here," she barked, acting like she owned the soil under my boots. I stayed calm, wiping dirt off my hands, but inside I was boiling. She wasn't just trying to take my tractor, she was trying to stop my planting season. Crops that fed my family and half the county were on the line. So I leaned on the tractor and said quietly, "If you touch this machine, you'll regret it." She laughed, thinking I was bluffing, not realizing I had a plan brewing that would leave her speechless.
The tow truck driver hesitated, mumbling something about needing a signed order, but Karen snapped at him to just hook it up. I could see he wasn't convinced, yet he didn't want to argue with her. She strutted around my tractor like a queen giving commands, shouting, "Move this junk out of here now!" That's when I noticed her shiny car parked right at the edge of my field, half on my property, wheels sunk slightly into the soft soil. A grin crept across my face. If she wanted to play games during planting season, then fine. I'd plant something she'd never forget. As she yelled at the driver, I hopped into my tractor, lowered the plow, and drove slowly toward her car. The metal teeth carved into the earth, and with every pass, I trapped her precious vehicle deeper in the dirt. Karen's confident smile cracked when she realized what I was doing. She screamed, "Stop! That's my car!" But by then, it was too late. My tractor was digging a neat row, and her car was the newest crop in my field. The tow truck driver actually chuckled under his breath, muttering, "Well, ain't that something?"
Karen's face turned red as she ran toward her car, trying to stop me, but the ground was already swallowing her tires. She yanked on the door handle, but it barely opened. Mud clung to the frame like glue. "You can't do this! This is illegal!" she shrieked, waving those fake HOA papers in the air as if they meant something. I shut off my tractor, climbed down, and looked her dead in the eye. "Illegal? On my own land? You sure you want to use that word?" For the first time, she didn't have a comeback. The tow truck driver leaned against his rig, arms crossed, enjoying the show. Karen stomped her feet and threatened, "I'll call the cops. You'll be arrested for damaging my property." I raised an eyebrow, calm as ever. "Go ahead," I said slowly, "but make sure you tell them why your car is parked in the middle of my crops." Her mouth opened, then closed, like she realized how stupid that would sound. The silence that followed was almost sweet, except I knew Karen wasn't done yet. She never was.
She pulled out her phone anyway, stabbing the screen with her finger as she shouted, "Yes, officer, he's destroying my car with farm equipment." She paused, then lowered her voice, glancing at me nervously. I could tell the dispatcher had asked her a question she didn't like. Well, yes, it is on his property, but—" She stopped mid-sentence, her face draining of color. I chuckled under my breath, knowing the cops weren't buying her story. The tow truck driver finally spoke up, louder this time. "Lady, you dragged me out here with some HOA nonsense. This ain't even an HOA neighborhood." Karen spun on him, screaming, "Shut up! You work for me!" He shook his head. "Nope, you don't pay me. The guy with the land does." He pointed at me. Her jaw dropped, and for a second she looked like she might cry. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. "You thought you could humiliate me during planting season, but you just planted yourself in a hole you can't climb out of." The way her hands shook told me she finally realized this wasn't going to end the way she imagined. Minutes later, a sheriff's cruiser pulled up, lights flashing. Karen straightened her shoulders, suddenly acting like the victim, and rushed toward the deputy.
Thank God you're here! Arrest him! He tried to bury my car with that monster machine!" she cried, pointing at my tractor. The deputy looked past her, then at me, then finally at the half-sunken car lodged in my field. His lips twitched like he was holding back a laugh. "Ma'am," he said slowly, "why is your vehicle parked on his private farmland?" Karen froze, stammering. I was enforcing HOA rules." The deputy raised an eyebrow. "This county doesn't even have an HOA." Her excuse crumbled right there. She turned to me, hoping I'd back down, but I stayed quiet, arms folded. The tow truck driver smirked and muttered, "Told ya." The deputy finally sighed, shaking his head. "Looks to me like you're trespassing, ma'am. And if you called in a false report, that's another problem for you." Karen's eyes widened in shock, like the ground had dropped beneath her. For once, she wasn't the one in control.
Karen's voice cracked as she tried to recover. No, you don't understand. He threatened me. He was going to destroy everything." The deputy tilted his head toward me. "That true?" I simply pointed at the neatly planted rows stretching across my field. "Only thing I'm destroying is the soil, Sheriff, the way it's supposed to be." The deputy smirked at that, but Karen wasn't done. She dug into her purse and yanked out those crumpled, fake HOA notices. "See, I have authority," she shouted, waving them like golden tickets. The deputy took the papers, scanned them for a second, and then burst out laughing. "These are printed off the internet, ma'am. You forged legal documents." Her face drained of color. "That's a crime," he added firmly, sliding the papers into his pocket as evidence. Karen spun in circles, desperate now, looking at the tow truck driver for backup, but he only lifted his hands and said, "Don't drag me into this." She turned back to the deputy, trying to cry her way out, but he was already calling in another unit. That's when I realized her little power game had just flipped into a full-blown arrest.
Another cruiser rolled up, and this time 2 deputies stepped out. Karen's bravado vanished the moment they walked toward her. "You don't understand. I'm the victim here," she pleaded. But the first deputy shook his head. "Ma'am, you trespassed, filed a false report, and tried to use forged documents. That's 3 strikes." Her knees wobbled as the cuffs clicked around her wrists, and for once, she had no audience to clap for her performance. The tow truck driver whistled low, muttering, "Guess you ain't towing nothing today." I leaned against my tractor, watching quietly, but inside I felt the weight of satisfaction. This wasn't just about a car or my field. It was about finally stopping her from pushing people around. As they led her to the cruiser, Karen twisted back and spat, "You'll regret this. You don't know who I am." I finally spoke, steady and calm, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I don't care who you are. Out here, the land decides, and this land is mine." The deputy nodded at me like he understood. The sound of the cruiser door slamming shut was the sweetest ending to her little game. Or at least, that's what I thought.
As the cruisers pulled away with Karen in the back, I thought the nightmare was over. The tow truck driver gave me a nod and started to leave, but before his engine even rumbled, another SUV rolled up fast and stopped at the edge of my field. A man in a suit stepped out, sunglasses on, holding a leather folder. He walked straight toward me like he owned the place. "You must be the farmer," he said flatly. "Karen's attorney. I'm here on her behalf." My stomach tightened. Of course she wasn't going quietly. He opened the folder and flashed a stack of papers. "According to this," he said, "Karen has a pending claim on part of this land. If you interfere with her rights again, we'll sue you for damages." The tow truck driver muttered, "You gotta be kidding me." But the lawyer wasn't joking. I took the papers, skimmed them, and then let out a slow laugh. He frowned. "Something funny?" I looked him dead in the eye and said, "Yeah, because before you walked out here, you didn't bother to check who actually owns this entire block." His confidence slipped for the first time, and that's when I knew.
Karen's last trick was about to backfire harder than all the rest.